We are at day 4 of our trade up challenge. That is right, we are trading up the water energy to a $10,000 Pokemon card. Can we do it? Well, today we're gonna see how much progress we can make. Lucky for us, this entire card show was packed. Every single table was filled because of Super Bowl weekend. People were trying to trade their sports card. Unfortunately, we are only looking for Pokemon. I had a lot of offers for sports cards, for my Pokemon cards, but I don't know anything about sports cards. And we are a Pokemon channel, so obviously not really interested. As always, my first task is looking at every booth, seeing who is here, how many of them are Pokemon, just getting the lay of the land. That is always key. That is step number 1. And of course, as I'm getting the lay of the land, I run into vendors that I've worked with before, and I gotta say hi, I gotta say what's up and see how they've been doing in the past 2 weeks. One thing you're gonna notice today is a lot of kids around me, and that's because a lot of kids were trying to do trade-up challenges. Some were just doing it because they thought it was cool and fun when they saw me doing it. Some were just there by chance and happened to be doing it. And then there were some whose parents were vendors and they were trying to make their kids go do trade-ups so that way they had cards they could sell, which I thought was a little strange and was a little sad because obviously these kids wanted to keep the cards and their parents were trying to make them resell it. So it is what it is, I can't help it, and I actually wanted to help out some of the kids that I was seeing today. So at our first booth, I saw a really nice Lugia, PSA, I think it was 9, and I really wanted it. However, we just couldn't come to a good trade. I was trying to go through my cards. I either had cards that were too low or too high, and I just couldn't get to that price point, unfortunately. So at this point, I had to skip it and think maybe I could circle back around, maybe do a couple other trades, and maybe get my way to that Lugia. As I was walking around, I did see this beautiful booth with a bunch of Pokemon cards, different types of packs, and the prices were actually pretty good. I was kind of surprised. I was expecting them to be a lot higher considering we were at a card show, but for the most part, a lot of these were actually really well priced, either low or right around market value, which was just surprising to me. As I was circling around, I did notice this one vendor I have never met before, and he had a lot of Pokemon cards, a lot of singles all over the place, and I was like, man, this might be my chance to get a nice trade going. I mean, he had PSA graded cards, CGC, all at different price ranges, and then those single cards, again, all different price ranges, and I figured there was something we could work out. And I kept coming back to this vendor quite a bit. In fact, I want to make sure I give him a shout out. His name is Abe. He was a bro. You should check him out. I'll have links to his Instagram and everything else in the description below, because this dude really came in clutch for me throughout the day. So he was interested in a decent number of the cards that I had, but it was a matter of figuring out what is our total value here so that way he could offer me something that might be a good trade for both of us. As we were negotiating, my little friend here came by. He happened to be doing a nice little trade up himself and had gotten his way up pretty well. And I decided, you know what, I kind of want to just listen and see what this little kid happened to trade up to.
Looking like for a $5 card.
No, you need to get more for the $5 card. For this one, get like a $7 or $8.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to find another. I don't know how.
Here, let me help you out with that.
I need a $5 card.
You need a. Get a 5. Get a little bit more.
Fine, 6.
Get a little greedy.
Yeah, get a little greedy with it.
6.
Excuse me.
$6 card.
I had two tables.
What can I give you? Do you like anything here?
I do want the rainbow.
Do you want the Gardevoir or do you want the Shaman?
The Gardevoir looks pretty good.
Yeah, no.
I've seen people trading those
I
two
kinda
quite a bit
Oh
lately.
yeah, no, Guardian's cool. Do you want the Mewtwo? You can take it.
I'm not gonna take the Charizard.
Don't take that charger. You know what? I'll let you take that charger. Just because I picked one out.
Why?
If you don't want it,
Don't question it. Just do it quick.
I want both.
Alright, so now you can trade this Charizard now. Keep that. But don't.
As I was just listening to their conversation, I was just surprised how much Abe was really helping him out. He was making sure that he was getting the best trade possible, because the kid was not really too sure about values for different cards, and he was actually undervaluing some of the cards he had. And so Abe was like, nah. Look, that card you got there is worth more than you think. You need to make sure you pick out enough cards out of my binder so that way you get the most out of it. So after some back and forth and looking up prices, we decided the cards he wanted were worth about $185 as of today. And that's because when we first got them, they were worth a little bit more, but you know, prices are always fluctuating, so you can never be too sure what they're going to be worth in a couple weeks. After a little bit more back and forth trying to figure out which card would be best, we kind of decided on the Charizard, which was worth about $200 to $250, just kind of varying over the last few weeks. And we decided to settle on it, because honestly, I felt like that Charizard would be pretty easy to trade, and it allowed me to kind of consolidate all those cards I had into one PSA graded card that should be a little bit easier to carry around at least. And with that card in our pocket, I ran into Lil Man once again. I felt like I was just following him around because this dude knew the best places to trade, and he was hustling out here. But unfortunately, he was taking all the good trades, so a lot of these vendors were running out of good cards to trade with me. But hey, it is what it is. And of course, we had to come all the way back around and show off our newest traded up card, and they were really excited to see it. A lot of vendors were really excited to see that Charizard I got. They really wanted it, and a lot of them were offering me upwards of $250 for that card, both in cash and in trade value, which was very tempting, but just hearing how much people wanted it made me think I should probably hold off a bit, see if I can get something a little bit more, maybe get a little bidding war going on. And as I was walking around, something funny kind of happened. A lady came up behind me and was like, "Hey, I heard you had this card." And I was just thinking in my head, who would have told her that? I haven't really shown this Charizard around much. And I realized it must have been one of the vendors I had just seen. And unfortunately, I had just traded away the card. So I directed her back to Abe, who happened to have the card now. So that way he could get a nice little sale or trade going, whatever ended up with that. But I thought that was kind of funny and just kind of neat because I thought for a second, oh, maybe this lady just happens to know me or something. What an awkward coincidence. And it was at this point where I ran into little dude number 2. This little dude wanted to trade up some of his cards, and his dad told me he was pretty new at trading, and this was the first card show they had ever been to. So I decided I'm gonna take a side quest and help this little dude out, help him get a couple trades going just so he could get his binder filled up and maybe get some cards that he wanted. So of course, the first person I'd take him to is Abe. My dude here who just helped me out, he's gonna have to hook up this kid too, am I right? And I was right, because Abe found a bunch of cards in his binder that he was interested in, and he told little man, look, you can pretty much pick out as many cards as you want from all these binders because I think you have some great cards that I want. You should be able to fill up your binder as well. While little dude was looking through all the cards, I decided I would look through his binder because I was surprised. This dude had a lot of older cards. I mean, this kid wasn't that old. I mean, maybe elementary, middle schoolish, and he had a lot of old cards that honestly I remember as a kid. And I didn't even have any more. So I was pretty impressed by little man here. And the way he organized his binder too, just look at it, so nice. And I was pretty impressed. I was just like, man, I want some of his cards too. But obviously I wanted him to get a good trade with Abe first before I took any of this kid's cards. At this point, little man knew exactly what he wanted, and he asked if I could just help him take some of these cards out. We just took him out one by one by one. We were just taking out a bunch of cards. And Abe was like, listen, man, you didn't take out enough cards. You need to take out at least 20 cards from my binder, okay? Minimum 20. And little man was like, man, I don't even need 20. There's just a few that I want. And Abe was like, nah, listen, kid. You have to take 20 of my cards. Listen, man, I need you to take more cards because your cards are worth more right now than what you've taken out. You need to be plucking out cards like crazy until you feel satisfied. At this point, Lil Man was super happy with what he had, and it was time for us to do a trade. So I saw he had a Hitmonlee and a Hitmonchan, which both I personally loved as a kid. So I showed him all of the cards I had and asked, what do you want? And he said he wanted my Blastoise and my Oddish, which I was like, you sure, dude? Your cards are definitely worth more. And he's like, nah, I want those 2 cards. This dude loves his older cards. He loves Blastoise, and he was just like, that is what I want. And I said, hey, listen, I also have some graded cards. I have some cards in this binder. But he just didn't really want them, and I was kind of surprised. But as long as he was happy, I was happy, and I really wanted to make sure that he was happy with that. I even showed him the prices and told him that they definitely weren't equal. He should have taken more, and he was just like, nah, man, this is what I want. This kid knew what he wanted. That's what's key here. He knew what he wanted, and he was happy with it. At this point, I took him to one of my other favorite vendors, Pokémon Bird. This dude is always willing to help out and he always has amazing cards and amazing packs. So I told him, you need to come check out what he has and maybe you'll find something that you want out of all of his amazing stuff. And of course, little man definitely found some cards he wanted. He traded up his graded card that he had just gotten from Abe, and he got some nice cards as well as a little box of cards that he could then open up and enjoy. I swear, little man here was killing it today. It was only his first show, and he knew exactly what he wanted, and he was making sure he got exactly what he wanted. At this point, I wanted to ask Pokémon Bird some advice on my new Charizard that I had just gotten. And luckily, he is super honest with me. He recommended that I just hold on to it for a while and not trade it up for smaller cards that might be a little bit more in value. Because he pretty much told me this one card will be a lot easier to trade than a lot of small cards. And in the end, it'll probably be better for the trade-up challenge. So I always appreciated Pokémon Bird for helping me out. At this point, Lil Man wanted a few more cards before he headed out. And so we checked out a vendor that I wasn't actually familiar with. We decided to look through his binder of cards and see what we could find for little man here. And while my little dude here was doing his trades, I went ahead and showed some of my cards as well so he knew what I had to offer for a trade up. And he was of course interested in the Charizard. He said that he would definitely work with me on that trade in the future because he didn't bring any graded cards today. So this might be a little side mission as well where we work on a trade for that. But in the meantime, he wanted my Hitmonlee and my Hitmonchan. He said he had a friend who literally had just texted him asking for those cards, asking if he had those, and I said, well, looks like I just happened to be here, what a coincidence, let's see if we can get a trade going. After a little back and forth, we decided on a nice little trade for an Arceus and a Magmar EX, which personally, I didn't want to trade away once I got it. I remember having that card as a kid, and I absolutely loved it, and it just brought back good memories, but the trades have to keep going. At this point, I decided to head back to Abe. I figured he might be able to help me out with some of these new cards I just got. But funny thing is, little man number one was already there. He was trying to do a trade up himself, and I was like, darn, he beat me to it. But luckily, Abe has a lot of trade up kindness available for us all. So after looking through his binder, we did have a trade going here. I traded both of the cards for 2 slabs. We had a Raichu, we had Jesse and James, and then we had 2 evolutions, which I felt like would be pretty easy to trade down the line, because who doesn't like an evolution? So of course, those are my first goal, was to trade those 2 cards. I figured it couldn't be that hard. And I was correct. I was able to trade both those evolutions for a Charizard and a Ninetales, both of which I just absolutely love. And again, I don't like trading away fire types, but I have to. Especially when it's a Charizard, it's like I just want to keep it forever, but I have to give it away. And it was at this point I actually ran into someone that just happened to have a binder full of Pokemon cards but knew nothing about them. He said he bought it for $100 and he was hoping to get 100 back, just trying to offload it somewhere. And I decided to just look through it. Honestly, I was hoping maybe he would trade with me for a card or 2, but he really just didn't want anything to do with Pokemon. He just wanted to get rid of these cards, which is totally understandable. He just wanted to get his $100 back. I unfortunately was not dealing money today. It was solely trades. But man, I really like looking through people's binders. It's just a nice little, glimpse into what they have and brings back a little bit of nostalgia at the same time. And I didn't get this on camera, but a little kid came up and said, hey, I heard you had a Charizard, and he happened to want to trade it, so I said, sure. And he just handed me this card. I didn't know what it was worth, but I figured, why not? The kid wanted it, he could take it. And so I went back to my boy, Abe. I was like, man, Abe, you're being a real bro here. You're helping me out with these trades, and honestly, I just love the excitement he had every time I was bringing over cards, and I always was super excited to see what he had. And man, he always has such amazing cards, and people were trading with him like crazy. So I was like, I need to hop into this quickly. So it was at this point that I thought it was kind of funny. I traded him the Zekrom I just got for the Flareon that I gave him in the first place. Because honestly, I kind of wanted to keep the Flareon. I really like Flareon, and I couldn't help it. I was just like, you know what? If you're willing to trade it back to me, let's make a little deal here. And luckily he was. Again, Abe, you are such a man. I love you, dude. Thank you so much for helping me out today. And then I ran again into little dude number 3, who was the one who traded me the Zekrom for the Charizard. And he asked if I'd be willing to trade with him again. I said, of course I would. I'd be willing to help you out however you want. And he said, can you look through my binder, tell me what you would want? And I said, how about this? Let me just look through your binder and just see what you have in general, because I love looking through people's binders, like I said. And this little dude also had an amazing collection. I mean, this dude was killing it, and I loved him for it. And he did want some of my cards, and I said, sure, let's see what we could do. Unfortunately, he had to go. His mom was calling him, and I didn't have time to look through all his cards and see what would be a good trade. But little man said that he was happy that we got a trade going anyways, and he was happy that I got to talk to him. So little man number 3, I appreciate you as well. So at the end of day 4, this is what we ended up with. It was a nice haul, probably a little over $400, and I was pretty happy, honestly. And I think day 5 is gonna be an amazing day.